Asalaam
والضحى
Aleykum
والليل
guys,
إذا
welcome
سجى
to the Sultan
ما ودعك
Podcast.
ربك وما
Today I'm
قلى.
going through Surah
By the
ad-Duha.
forenoon, by the night when it darkens, your Lord has neither forsaken you nor hates you. Okay, so context on this surah. There was a time in Mecca after the revelation was sent to Rasulullah ﷺ, where the revelation stopped for a while. So people noticed, Rasulullah ﷺ wasn't preaching that much anymore. He didn't seem to be getting up to worship. And a lot of the people of Quraysh, when they realized the Prophet wasn't like giving them any, revelation or anything, they started to say things like the Prophet ﷺ's God has abandoned him, his devil has abandoned him, his devil has left him, etc. And these things started to greatly affect Rasulullah ﷺ. That and the fact that Rasulullah ﷺ started to really like the revelation. So when the revelation stopped, he started to feel, something was missing in his life. He was gaining all of this knowledge and all of this insight, and it's just gone. This was starting to affect Rasulullah ﷺ. So, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, by the forenoon and by the night when it darkens. The forenoon is really just the start of the day, and the night when it darkens is the end of the day. So Allah in the beginning of this surah is swearing on the beginning of the day and the end of the day, two things which he has power of and two things which are very important. He's swearing by the start of the day and the end of the day that was Allah, that he has not forsaken Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was starting to think. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى وَلَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. And indeed the hereafter is better for you than the present, and verily your Lord will give you so that you shall be well pleased. So this is pretty self-explanatory. The Prophet ﷺ in this life, for a lot of it was not in like the best situation. The first 40 years of his life, he was living okay, but he wasn't, he wasn't, I don't know how you'd say, balling or anything. Then after he received the message at 40, at first his financial situation was good. And then after the people of Quraysh started, there was a boycott against the Prophet ﷺ and his tribe, as in the Prophet ﷺ and his tribe were completely alienated from any transactions. So the people of Quraysh wouldn't trade with them. The people of Quraysh would not allow their people to marry into the tribe of the Prophet, I think Banu Hashim. So they were suffering from a boycott. That was a bit of financial difficulty that he was going through. Then Rasulullah ﷺ was chased out of Mecca, which obviously has its hardships, and he was brought to Medina. And in Medina, life was okay, but in the beginning, up to, I think, maybe after the Battle of Al-Khandaq. Al-Khandaq was this battle where all of the Quraysh, some Bedouin tribes, basically 10,000 of them surrounded Medina, and the situation inside of Medina got pretty dire. I believe I read one hadith. No, I heard this in a khutbah, so don't quote me on it. But there was a time where the people in Medina were eating like old fat. They had no food. It was that bad, so they were eating like old fat. That's how dire the situation became. Until about the Battle of Al-Khandaq in Medina, the Prophet ﷺ's financial position wasn't really that good. He had 9 wives, yes, but each wife of his had one room, and it's not like today. You get married and you have to give the lady $10,000 and a cat. He gave each wife of his something that he used to cook in those days. I can't remember what it was, and a small room, and that was it. So it's only after the Battle of Al-Khandaq Rasulullah's financial position started to improve. But even then, the Prophet ﷺ, even though he was gaining a lot of money from the expeditions he was sending out, fighting whoever, Rasulullah ﷺ, when the war booty would come, he'd take his expenses for 1 year, and then the rest he just give to the poor people. So the Prophet ﷺ never really lived lavishly. There was a time where, okay, I think I'm spending a lot of time at this point, but there was a time where Rasulullah ﷺ was sleeping on a mat, a grass mat. And when he woke up, there was like marks from this grass mat on his back. And somebody came to him and he was like, Rasulullah, why don't you let us put something soft over this mat so it doesn't annoy you? And Rasulullah said, I have nothing to do with this world. The example of me and this world is a person who's on a journey, sees a tree, sits under the tree for a little bit, and then continues on his journey. And this is just a stopping point for me. So Rasulullah never really lived well in this life. So the hereafter is going to be better for Rasulullah because he's going to be in Al-Firdaus, the highest place in Jannah. And I read this hadith in Ibn Kathir. He says that Rasulullah will have almost 1 million wives. I don't know if this is like authentic or anything, but this is Ibn Kathir, he must know what he's talking about. And yeah, and the hereafter is better for you than the present. وَلَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى, and your Lord will give you so that you shall be well pleased. So Allah is going to give Rasulullah in al-akhirah so that he will be well pleased. Another thing about Rasulullah's attitude towards the dunya, Rasulullah, Allah gave him the choice, and I've discussed this in a previous video. He gave Rasulullah the choice after he conquered Mecca and everything was done. He gave him the choice between living forever and having everything that he could want in this world, or returning to Allah. And Rasulullah, who could have lived forever, okay, and this is Sahih, I know for sure, could have lived forever. He chose Ar-Rafiq al-A'la, the highest companion. He chose to be with Allah. So Rasulullah wasn't about this world at all. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى وَوَجَدَكَ آئِلًا فَأَغْنَى. Did he not find you an orphan and gave you a refuge? Rasulullah's father died when he was born, okay? His mother died when he was 6 years old. And then he was taken care of by his grandfather Abdul Muttalib for a bit, but then his grandfather Abdul Muttalib also died. So his parents and grandparents were all gone, okay? And this is what Allah is saying in terms of, did we not find you an orphan and give you a refuge? The refuge came in the form of Abu Talib, the uncle of Rasulullah, who took care of him until Abu Talib died. And this was after Rasulullah got the revelation. So for more than 36 years of Rasulullah's life, because Rasulullah received the revelation when he was 40. وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًا فَهَدَى, and found you unaware and guided you. This is simply, I believe, the revelation itself. Rasulullah he wasn't worshipping idols or anything, but he wasn't guided, and then Allah guided him through the revelation. وَوَجَدَكَ آئِلًا فَأَغْنَى, and he found you poor and made you rich. There's two ways you think of this. First of all, you have to know that the surah was revealed when Rasulullah was still in Mecca. Okay? So, in terms of him being poor and then rich, Rasulullah, I don't know if he was poor, okay, but his financial situation was, nobody knows how his financial situation was. But then Rasulullah married Khadija radiallahu anha, and she was a businesswoman, and before he married her, he was working with her. So Rasulullah went from a place where he wasn't really employed, or I believe he used to shepherd sheep before that, to a point where he was like a trader under Khadija radiallahu anha, who he eventually married. And Khadija, when she married Rasulullah, go on to support Rasulullah even when he was delivering the message until she died. Okay, so that could be one definition of Rasulullah being poor and then him being made rich by Allah. The other definition is that this is a hadith, okay? Wealth, Rasulullah says this, and this is related by Abu Huraira, and I think it's in the two Sahih, Bukhari and Muslim. Wealth is not determined by the abundance of possessions, but wealth is the richness of the soul. So Allah enriched Rasulullah's soul with the revelation, and that's a way that He made Rasulullah rich when he was poor before, if you understand my meaning. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Therefore, treat not the orphan with oppression. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. And repulse not the one who asks. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. And proclaim the grace of your Lord. Just as you are... Okay, so... وَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Therefore, treat not the orphan with oppression, just as you are an orphan, as in Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Treat not the orphan with oppression. Okay, that's self-explanatory. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. And repel not the one who asks. This can be referring to physically, as in somebody who's asking for sadaqah or something of the sort, or somebody who is seeking knowledge, okay, from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. And proclaim the grace of your Lord, okay? So just Allah is telling the Prophet ﷺ to speak of the benefits that Rasulullah ﷺ has gotten from Allah and how Allah has helped them. And there's a hadith mentioned in the tafsir, Ibn Kathir's tafsir of this surah, and he says, "Man la yashkurun nas la yashkur." This is a hadith. Whoever is not thankful to the people, then he will not be thankful to Allah. So first, the hadith is talking about being thankful to the people for the benefits that he derives from them. And then the Prophet ﷺ in another hadith says, whoever overcomes some test and then mentions it to others, then he is thankful. And whoever conceals it, then he was ungrateful. So let's say you have a problem, completely broke, okay? And Allah allows you to get some money, you become the CEO of a company, you have a successful YouTube channel, inshallah, make dua for me, etc. You should tell people about that. And that's a way of showing that you are grateful for that favor of Allah upon you. And if you do not, then that is also a sign that you are ungrateful. So, that was the tafsir of Surah Ibn Kathir. MashaAllah. Of Surah ad-Duha. If you liked it, leave like, comment, subscribe, etc. And I'll see you in the next one.